The present video essay aims to make use of media literacy in order to explain various anthropological concepts within the popular Mexican media consumption, being media literacy the ability to analyze media messages and use communication to make a difference, and understanding anthropology as the study of what makes us human. For starters, the four cultural Mexican products that will be analyzed are the following. Belonging to Mexican social media, the trending example is Paco de Miguel. Paco de Miguel has positioned himself as one of the largest content creators on the TikTok platform, surpassing 2 or more million views. Since he was 15 years old, the influencer has been uploading short videos in which he makes parodies about the common behavior and social interactions within the Mexican population, mainly characterizing women. The chosen Mexican TV series is La Rosa de Guadalupe. Each episode tells an inspirational story, where the protagonists overcome great obstacles thanks to their faith. At some point, a person close to the affected one prays before an image of the Virgin of Guadalupe to invoke her help in solving the problem. Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe is the most recognized symbol of Catholic Mexicans. The denouement of each episode comes when the main character becomes aware of the errors in their behavior. The Mexican singer whose aesthetics will be examined is Juan Gabriel. Alberto Aguilera Valadez, better known as Juan Gabriel, was a Mexican singer, songwriter, actor, performer, musician, record producer, and philanthropist, also known as El Divo de Juárez. He was born in Michoacán, Mexico in 1950. He was undoubtedly one of the most important singers and composers in Mexico. Now, a brief summary of the four anthropological concepts that will be used to analyze the cultural products will be given. Number 1. Postmodernism. It is a cultural current with a pessimistic view of modernity's foundations. It imposes instead individualism and consumerism. In postmodernism, language is crucial. There is a constant relativism and ambivalence, and power is questioned. However, it even reaches extremes of post-truth, which questions absolutely everything. Number 2. Discourse. These are expressive messages that carry a certain ideology. Discourses convey the common assumptions about the ways of talking or thinking regarding particular subjects. Cultures are organized around discourses of power that determine how people must act and think. Number 3. The gaze. Depends on how we gaze others, creating certain dispositions towards them. It implies there's a psychological power relationship between the one who gazes and the gazed one. The gazer, of course, is superior. Number 4. Alterity. It is a philosophical principle of exchanging one's perspective for that of the other. In other words, it is acknowledging the unique embodiment of every person aside from yourself. We will now move on to look on postmodernism nowadays within these Mexican cultural products. Paco de Miguel. According to Baudrillard, a French philosopher and sociologist, what has happened in postmodern culture is that our society has become so reliant on simulacra that we have lost all contact with the real world that preceded it. Contemporary media does not only share information, but rather interprets our most private selves for us. We therefore adopt and give continuity to our behavior as defined by commercials and commercialized images. Baudrillard, focusing on media, the creator of simulacra, said it condenses the world in a virtual culture, in which subjects end up in objects or mere characters. The digital simulations, such as Paco de Miguel impersonating ordinary Mexican characters, have become even more real than reality, which is why we feel so identified when we watch his videos. La Rosa de Guadalupe. La Rosa de Guadalupe has a blatantly pessimistic view of modernity's foundations. For example, regarding individual choice, ensuring complete reproductive freedom for all women means working towards individual freedom, an ideal encouraged by modernity. The Mexican TV series La Rosa de Guadalupe states a strong argument against abortion, thus standing against individual choice. For postmodernity, mass media is one of the new centers of power due to its ability to influence the masses. The unstoppable progress which was promoted by modernity has been quite notorious in our century. La Rosa de Guadalupe considers the internet and cell phones to be extremely risky. Even if these perils do exist, the show stresses and takes out of context these situations. No, mi nieta! Finally, there is an evident diversity trap. for La Rosa de Guadalupe aims to be inclusive and adapt to the present times. Nonetheless, it falls in the mistake of treating particular traits as homogeneous. Juan Gabriel. Along with David Bowie and Prince, Juan Gabriel was an artist who questioned and redefined gender concepts through his music. His intention was to build new alternative narratives from the periphery of the social structure. He put homosexual identity and folk culture under the spotlight of the national discussion for several decades. He also stated questions on power. A man who never hid his sexual identity is one of Mexico's biggest idols. Alberto Aguilera Valadez created the image of a person who built himself on his own by fighting difficulties that society and the era set in front of him. Moving on, how are discourses conveyed in these examples of media? Paco de Miguel. His videos are a clear illustration of a dominant discourse, also known as metanarrative, brought to life. When we are watching his clips, we find ourselves claiming, "That's right." We have certain messages so deeply rooted in our minds that we do not know we live by them until the moment we are told so. Understanding that discourses determine how people are and construct people's bodies and minds, Paco de Miguel conveys the image of the bitter elementary school teacher, the paranoid mother, the delusional girlfriend. The fault is not on the women who act as such, but on the ideological message that encourages their formation. La Rosa de Guadalupe. The various discourses in the TV series, based on a class-ridden discourse, are built through this next step. ¿Es negro? ¿Mi hijo es negro? What one can say. La Rosa de Guadalupe seeks to use a very Mexican lexicon, linked to distinct social groups. What one cannot say. On the other hand, cuss words are treated as if they did not exist at all. What one must say. According to this TV series, one must definitely pray, accept one's faults, and ask for forgiveness. The modes of saying. One must speak lovingly to their relatives and mercifully and regretfully to Our Lady of Guadalupe when something is supposed to be said. It dictates one must apologize after realizing there has been a mistake, ask for help before it's too late, everything at the right time, with no time to process trauma or the chance to actually mess up. To whom one addresses. There is a clear distinction between how one addresses people their age and older or younger people. There's also a difference between the way one speaks to an authority and how one talks with somebody seen as inferior or less powerful. Juan Gabriel. Juan Gabriel had a life full of hindrances and suffering. When he achieved success in the music industry, he used his new privilege to spread his discourse of freedom and pride in oneself. His ideology was displayed through body techniques. Juan Gabriel challenges the patriarchal demand to hide his homosexuality and decides not to be intimidated by the discriminatory morbidity of television. He made his body an instrument of transgression, a mediator between him and the society in which he was born. His embodiment became an icon of popular culture. With his beaded shirts, charro suits, and sequins hanging from tailor jackets. Beneath those striking clothes, Juan Gabriel's body became identifiable. He created a particular gesture, his shirt in quick jumps, with which he moved from one side of the stage to the other. Gaze. Paco de Miguel. His videos have 100% a satirical gaze. Even if he is not aiming to do so, he analyzes and criticizes not only women, but the Mexican upper middle class through humor, where he uploads pieces of humor spread with variations. ¿Ocho? Güey, hija de tu madre. Paco de Miguel has even created characters such as Melis Cervantes, Caro Acampa, and Miss Leti. The handful of characters, the language, the clothes are the pieces of humor copied over and over. La Rosa de Guadalupe. La Rosa de Guadalupe gazes Mexican society through a variety of lenses here unlisted. 1. It addresses today's panopticon, highlighting how personal data is public and how there's a submissive, consenting display of private life. Everybody can know what anybody's up to. 2. An authoritative gaze prevails. The writers and directors consider themselves an authority, and judge as though their gaze and opinion on the lifestyles of others were wise and unquestionable. 3. LGBT mainstream gaze. The fetishistic heterosexual narratives are transferred to domesticated LGBT characters. 4. Patronizing gays. La Rosa de Guadalupe seeks to preserve the idea of our physical and mental inability to solve our problems by ourselves, since it is more convenient and better seen to recognize ourselves as weak and turn to this religious symbol, La Virgen de Guadalupe, to intercede for us. Juan Gabriel. Queer gaze. As stated, Juanga unsettled power relations, and remarkably, he didn't categorize. Many people in the artistic world knew about his intimacy, yet El Divo de Juárez never spoke openly about his sexual preferences. But his sin is not to be judged.
Dicen que lo que se ve no se pregunta, mijo.
At the insidious question of whether he was gay. Instead, he made space for new ways of being outside from the so-called macho man. Compassionate gaze, the economic inequalities and the persistent injustices. Even when he deals with heartbreak in his songs, he always considers the other a human worth sympathy. Finally, the concept of authority is presented in different forms. Paco de Miguel. It is obvious that Paco de Miguel's content is aware of the other, which is for him women of all ages. He sees the differences between him as a man and women not regarding external attributes, but as a more internal condition. He has explained how he learns and imitates stereotypic attitudes from Mexican women through his interactions with the other, his mother, grandmother, friends, girlfriends, etc. For starters, by wearing wigs and wearing common female clothing, he creates a source of awareness of the differentiation between him and the other. Thus, after categorizing and making the contrast evident, he values women. He finds them laughable, exaggerated, incongruous, conveying the common opinion of Mexicans and reinforcing it at the same time. La Rosa de Guadalupe. In this case, given that La Rosa de Guadalupe is openly religious and class-based, different embodiments and the ideal ones are invisibilized. For example, people who practice other religions aside from Catholicism seem not to exist in Mexican society according to this TV show. Likewise, bodies that do not fit the social requirements deemed as acceptable to be shown on TV are ignored. The other needs to be tamed, according to La Rosa de Guadalupe, in order to become predictable and understandable. Along the episode's dominant powers domesticate those deemed to be immoral by coercion or pity, but disguise it as a miracle caused by the Virgin Mary. Juan Gabriel. Juan Gabriel had what the philosopher Julia Kristeva considers is the adequate comprehension of authority, which is understanding differences as an internal condition rather than a matter of external attributes. Juanga's discourse recognizes and emphasizes authority, principally the distinction between the customary Mexican citizen and the real flawed and nuanced person. There is mutual understanding, not a simple tolerance within his aesthetics, which is why he conveys that differences must be acknowledged and not hidden. His style and body techniques are striking and flamboyant. Therefore, as he stands in the periphery of the Mexican social structure, he categorizes the other not as an enemy, but as a different embodiment worthy of the same respect he deserves.
Conclusively, the embodiments of the Mexican population are displayed in mass media. Nevertheless, the Mexican media does also shape the ideology of the national population, being trapped in an endless cycle molded by the concentric powers, government, capitalism, religion, who seek for their own best interest. I connect to these topics on a personal basis, given that as a Mexican woman, my upbringing has been deeply influenced by the postmodernist discourses conveyed by a wide variety of media forms. Therefore, by noticing the interest behind cultural products, I can develop a better critical thinking and judgment.